This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And this week, he's taking a look at a series that he's deeply nostalgic for, Left 4 Dead.
I'm not sure why, but I don't really remember using the MP5 in Left 4 Dead 2, which is weird because I played lots of it and I love MP5s. Most egregiously, the only thing that really matters here, there's no HK slap.
Make sure to subscribe and let us know what other games or guns you'd like to see Jonathan break down in the comments section below. Right, let's take a look at the guns of the Left 4 Dead franchise.
This is tremendously nostalgic for me, this whole thing. So this is obviously the famous Colt government, as it probably ought to be called, but never really is. It's the Colt 1911. These, I've got the Akimbo 1911s in front of me. The way that Finleyville Armory, spurious marking obviously, is on the right side of the slide is clearly meant to evoke Springfield Armory, which in its modern form is nothing to do with the armory that made US military weapons. It's a company that makes firearms, but they do make 1911 pattern pistols, which these are, and they are almost 1911 A1 pattern, but we do have a sort of a round shaped hammer instead of a spur hammer, and we have, or on the right hand side anyway, an enlarged competition safety. Now I think that's there because they knew they were going to akimbo these puppies, so they've got the standard 1911 safety on the left, and then they've got this ambidextrous safety on the other side. That's all well and good, but it doesn't magically let you detach the magazine or drop the magazine using your left thumb. You'd have to have the magazine catch switched over for that, and if you're picking them up in the field as you are in this game, that's not possible. These are absolutely fine. The only issue with them really for me is the 15 round capacity. Suspiciously identical to the Beretta 92 capacity, which immediately makes me wonder whether these were actually meant to be Berettas originally and they changed the model but not the specs. Next up, the Uzi. Apart from looking from this angle a little bit squished, a little bit short, this is the full-size IMI, as was Uzi 9mm submachine gun. Don't need me to tell you about the Uzi. It's pretty famous, and I remember using this a heck of a lot in Left 4 Dead. And I don't think I really paid much attention to things like its rate of fire back then, but it's way too high. So this is a rate of fire that you might get with maybe the Mini Uzi, with its smaller, lighter, faster bolt that's flying back and forth there. Otherwise though, it's quite well done, quite realistically modelled for the time, certainly. You'll notice the ARS, no jokes, fellow Brits, please. Automatic, repetition and safe. Currently this is on repetition, i.e. semi-automatic. That's a British Commonwealth type turn of phrase. The magazine catch being a little bit unusual off to the side. We do see the player sort of fumble with that, so pretty good job. Now, back in 2008, I had, I'm pretty sure, no idea what shotgun we've just seen. I probably even assumed that it was a bit of a made-up one. Regardless, it's one of these. It's the Benelli M4 Super 90. Pretty well represented. It does what you'd expect. Handling-wise, I mean, these guys are not, apart from Bill, of course, who's a veteran, but wouldn't have encountered one of these. They're not expected to be sort of current and competent experts on all of these firearms, so it's not necessary that they follow any particular drill. What Bill at least would know is finger off the trigger unless you're ready to shoot, and so thumbing the cartridges in at very, very high speed, because it's a fast-paced game and we have to speed that up. Otherwise you're going to get mauled to death. That's fine, but doing it while your finger's on the trigger, these days at least, makes me twitch. It probably didn't in 2008 so much. The minigun, major feature of this game. Absolutely can't get through the game without it, with these sort of standoffs that you have to periodically do. Lots of fun to use. They got the general sort of appearance and feel pretty right. I mean, I don't think in detail it's very close to an M134, but in video game terms, you feel like you're shooting a minigun. The rate of fire, important to get that right, and that feels right at least. I haven't tried to calculate it. It's difficult with such a high rate of fire gun to make it still feel punchy, because if you kept the sort of volume levels of the other guns but gave it the same rate of fire, it'd probably sound weird. So it's been sort of engineered to sound like a minigun does on a video clip, I suppose. I often feel with mounted guns in games, especially minigun or Gatling type guns, you don't really feel like you're having much effect. With this, I actually felt like I was able to swinging traverse, as they say said in the machine gun corps, to actually hit multiple enemies, and it feels like it's actually having an effect. For me, it's a great blend of recognizably a real gun. Does it work exactly like the real thing? Probably not, but does it matter? I mean, unlimited ammo, obviously, absolutely doesn't matter in the context of the game. It does what it needs to. M16, one of the better versions out there for feeling like you're in an action movie with an M16, which, let's be honest, is the main draw of a game like this, or it was for me. It even has on the texture on the lower receiver some markings, and they are correct markings, except for the spurious American Armory and the legally different Colt logo. But they look plausible enough, especially if you're being hounded by zombies, which we usually are in these games. Now, something I have seen on the Internet Movie Firearms database. I spent a long time on that site. Well done, guys, involved in that. And I remember seeing that the M16A2 was criticized because it's not burst. It's not 3-round burst, which the US issue M16A2 absolutely was. There is no US military M16A2 that is automatic fire, which this is. Now, from a game perspective, I like that. I didn't want the 3-round burst. But the issue being pointed out, which is sort of true, but sort of wrong as well, was the fact that there's no M16A2 that has automatic on the receiver. Auto on the receiver, automatic fire coming out the end of the barrel. Well, as viewers of the Royal Armouries channel will hopefully know, that's not true. So it's only the US military issue M16A2 that cannot have automatic fire. The M16A2 as a Colt product line, it was a whole range of weapons. Here is one, and trust me if you can't see that, that says M16A2, and that says auto. This is, apart from the British military black paint, as it came from the Colt factory. It is an M16A2 that is automatic, and it's not the only one. It's just that in the US military, that was only adopted as the M16A3 and would not have been marked A2. I realise this gets confusing. The bottom line is there's US military M16A2 and there's the Colt product range M16A2. And all possibilities were there with this modular rifle to have it do almost whatever you wanted within reason, and it would still be marked M16A2. So, is it incorrect for this to have automatic fire? Yes, it still is, because if this is meant to be left behind by soldiers, it wouldn't be marked M16A2 and it wouldn't be automatic. However, it also wouldn't be marked American Armory and have a spurious trademark on it. So you can go all the way down the rabbit hole on this, but at the end of the day, it's a good M16. Right, I'd kind of forgotten that the sniper rifle in this game was a Mini 14 and not an M14 or an M1A or something. It's semi-only. It's I guess, well, within the context of the game, it's powerful, although ordinary zombies don't take much killing. In practice, 5.56 or 223 round, same as the M16 in the game. The only thing that this gives you that the M16 doesn't, in theory, is the scope. And obviously you can put an optic on an M16, although perhaps not in the field. You know, the idea here, I guess, is that we found somebody's hunting rifle. I've grabbed something similar. We have Mini 14s in closer configurations to the game rifle than this. This has I think it's a beach stock. It's a bit too light coloured. It's pretty close. The muzzle device is different, but it is a Rigger Mini 14 caliber 223, as it says on the back here. The reason I'm waving the magazine around separately is that not having a great deal of experience with the Mini 14 platform, I occasionally struggle when it comes to inserting the magazine because the latching point is quite far in to the receiver. The way the magazine is shown inserted into the gun in the game is just shove it in and it's fine. It would be if you had some experience with the platform, but it's not quite reflecting the reality of the weapon, I don't think. But hey, it's something a bit different for a zombie game. It's instead of a big powerful bolt action sniper and then an assault rifle, we have something that's a little bit bridging the gap. It's almost an alternative to not an assault rifle, but an AR-15 pattern rifle, when in reality, ideally, you just have the AR and you'd stick a scope on it. Possibly not one with so much magnification as we have here and we have in the game, but quite happy with it as a semi-auto sniper, but sort of a DMR really. That's the kind of the role it plays in the game, sort of. Hey, some things I'd forgotten about Left 4 Dead, well, 2 in this case. The change of the main pistol from the Colt to the SIG P220, which we see on the right there. It's a sub-variant that we don't have with the safety on the frame there. This is a relatively unusual combination for a game, to have your sort of standard size pistol, and then when you pick up a second one, with Left 4 Dead 1, we had 2 of the same. That would be the logical way to do it. Games obviously have let you dual wield differentially, as it was. A gun, you pick up a different gun, you're holding one in each hand. That's always cool. Call of Duty, famous for that. The game automatically giving you a different pistol as your second pistol is kind of interesting. I can't remember how it handles that in terms of what you see lying on the ground, but regardless, you end up with a Glock in your left hand, a SIG in your right hand. So the element of realism would be that in some crisis situation like this, if you really felt you had to shoot 2 guns at once, you'd be stuck with whatever you had. You wouldn't be able to have 2 pristine, identical examples of the same gun. I will say the Glock 26, in terms of perspective on the screen there, proportions don't quite look right to me. I'm not sure why. I think it might be a bit too long in the barrel. The real thing is very, very short in front of the trigger guard, but it could be perspective.
Let's go.
I'm not sure why, but I don't really remember using the MP5 in Left 4 Dead 2, which is weird because I played lots of it and I love MP5s, as a lot of you know. I only have 2 criticisms. One would be the metallic components are very shiny, more so than they ought to be, really. It's not like it's shown to have lost a load of finish and been polished to a high shine. So that, I think, is a sort of period graphics issue, more so than anything else. Otherwise, it looks really good. The cocking handle... Sorry, 3 things. The cocking handle is too narrow, and it should be chunkier than that. Most egregiously, the only thing that really matters here, there's no HK slap. Reload is a legitimate alternative way of reloading the MP5, albeit not necessarily recommended with a full magazine because of the pressure of the spring pushing up the round. More importantly, it means you don't get the cool animation.
This ain't gonna be good.
Now, the AK I do remember using, and as I possibly even knew at the time, but now know, this is what we would call an AKM for modernised, and N for the sight rail on the left side of the receiver for night vision optics. They're relatively unusual in the scheme of things, just because there are so many AKs without, but that's what that bracket is on the left side there. We don't have, at this point, that sort of customization, so it's not used. I think they all come with either lasers or lights in these games. There's no real customization that I remember. It's a good effort for an AK. It's got a good rate of fire. One thing I do actually appreciate that I suspect some people might roll their eyes at is the fact that the player's using their right hand to perform the reload and cocking the weapon. Oddly enough, although there's no way that the characters in the game should know this, that's correct for Cold War Soviet handling of this type of weapon. Carried over to the AK-74, in fact. You are supposed to do all the manipulations with your shooting hand, with your right hand. It's not how it's done today, certainly not in the West. But the fact that they're taking the hand off, taking off the magazine, rocking in a new one, charging the weapon, that's actually correct. But again, it's one of these things that I think about sometimes. Games, and especially movies, should the character know how to handle the weapon that correctly? It's Deagle time. This is not bad. This is good, in fact. We actually can see at least an impression of the locking recesses in the barrel. And so what you can't really see is the multi-lugged bolt that's pushing the cartridge into the chamber, snapping the extractor over the rim, and then locking the gun shut, because this is a pistol, this is a handgun with a rifle operating system, gas operated. It will never cease to be impressive for that reason, and of course its sheer size and heft and power in its 50 Action Express form, which I'm pretty sure is what we're seeing here. Does anyone deliberately choose to make their Desert Eagle 357 or 44 when it can be 50? I doubt it. Everything seems present and correct. Controls are all there. The general proportions are correct. The finish I like. It's a stainless or nickel, and it's got some fairly plausible dirt on it. Like you see that the black streaking above where the bolt would be kind of imply, I'm not sure if the real Desert Eagle would ever achieve that dirt pattern, but at least it implies that this thing is seeing heavy use, which of course it is. And we see other black streaks down the side of the slide just behind where the gas piston is operating. So yeah, again, I think you'd have to shoot a Desert Eagle more than your wrists would be comfortable with to actually end up with it looking all dirty and streaky, but it adds character and it takes it away from the sort of Half-Life era of just shiny metallic looking textures. It looks like a sort of lived in pistol. Right, so we've got with the sequel, great sequel. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. But it does add some extra options, new weapons. This is another one, the Ingram Model 10. Shout out to my colleague Mike, who gets very bent out of shape if you call this a Mac 10. It's a Mac 10. And it's a good job, actually. They modeled it pretty closely again. The rate of fire on this being a short, compact, not quite machine pistol, but is closer to being correct than the quite slow Uzi. The report that the gunshots are, I don't think the zombies give them monkeys, but the effect of the suppressor, it does sound relatively realistic. You know, silencers don't silence, they just reduce the decibel level, and it sounds like it's doing that job, even if it doesn't have that effect in the game, because we're not fighting humans. Now, a weird quirky feature, and I'm not talking about the laser sight, which I've only just remembered was an optional pickup in these games, that's clamped around with some zip ties. What it's clamped around is what's interesting. Now, under here, you can just about see under the cover, it is a 2 diameter suppressor, but at no point is there a perforated heat shield around the suppressor. I think, well, today you might well find a handguard with cooling, lightning perforations in it, and then the suppressor is sleeved under that. But that's not the case with the Mac 10. What I think has happened here is they've had visual reference for the suppressor, probably without the cover on it, and for this thing. Now, this is not a suppressor, and nor is it a barrel extension, because unlike some games, you can't just screw on a barrel extension and magically have it improve your velocity or whatever. What it is just something to hang on to. And it is a heat shield, because obviously you can't just hang on to the barrel, and then you end up with a Mac 10 that looks like this. I think there's a really great balance of guns in these two games, in terms of what you start out with, what you pick up, when you find them, how effective they are, and how different they all feel. I think the M60 kind of underlines that quite nicely. It's not the fixed, super powerful, unlimited ammo minigun, but it's definitely more capable than the M16 or the AK. Looks right, sounds pretty good. Might be a missed opportunity to not have the player character hold the loose belt over their arm like Rambo, given that it's by default a hip firing view and not a aim down sights thing. But I can't really complain about it. Maybe it could have more punch in terms of volume, but it still sounds like a machine gun to me. Right, and the FN Scar, another of the assault rifles, obviously, and it's not bad. We've got the semi-infamous reciprocating cocking handle that, if you're not careful, will immediately tear your thumb off at the root. Obviously not really. The bigger problem is actually interfering with the operation of the weapon and stopping it from working. Different schools of thought on that. It's faithfully represented here. That's what we care about. Obviously, with very minimal, almost non-existent upgrade abilities for this, you're not really taking advantage of this modern modular platform that can be accessorized. You are cable tying on off camera a laser essentially, or a light. You're not taking advantage of the optics rail ability to mount proper sort of laser and light modules. You're not using it to its potential, which I suspect is why, in reality, if you happen to come across a weapon like this, when are you going to get the chance to upgrade it like you would if you were in special operations forces or something? So there's nothing inherently wrong with that, and it's just how the game is. What it does is make it hard to differentiate this from the M16, and so I think that's why they've gone for burst fire, which the FN SCAR, to my knowledge, I mean, certainly the standard versions do not. There might be a prototype at FN Herstal somewhere that is burst capable, but the commercially available, the military issue, no, it's select fire. It's semi-automatic and automatic. So they've by having to add this weapon later in the cycle, as it were, they've hamstrung themselves in terms of that slight hint of realism of they've got an M16A2 that's automatic, and it's been succeeded effectively at this point by a burst fire SCAR. So although there are M16A2s that are automatic, there are not SCARs that are burst. So if we want to get all gun nerd about it, this is a little bit jarring. Right, guys, those were the guns of Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. I hope someone learns to count to 3. That's what I'll say on that one. Great fun to go through those again. It's been many years. Really nostalgic for me to go through those games. Absolutely loved them. A shout out to my wife for the first time because she was absolutely notorious for leaving the rest of the team behind and running off ahead to get to the objective. You know it's true. All right, guys, we'll see you again next time on this series.